My dad cut me off for his pregnant wife, then tried to steal the house my dying mom left me, so I made him lose it all. My name is Nick. I am 25 years old, and this whole thing really started 22 years ago, when my mother was still in college. She got pregnant when she was 20. My father, Gavin, had been with her for about 8 months. The second she told him, he sent her one text saying he was not ready for that kind of responsibility. Then he changed his number. My mother kept me anyway. Her parents, Pop and Nana, were not thrilled at first. Pop sat her down with a calculator and walked her through what it would cost to raise a child as a single 20-year-old student. He showed her the numbers, the rent, the food, the doctor visits, the diapers, the impossible schedule. But the second I was born and he held me, all that math disappeared. He looked at Nana and said something like, "Well, I guess we're doing this." And they did. Pop handled the 5 in the morning feeding so my mom could sleep before class. Nana took the evenings. My mother worked part-time at a vet clinic and studied at night. For years, she ran on maybe 4 hours of sleep, sometimes less. Gavin sent nothing. No money, no phone calls, no birthday cards, nothing. And honestly, I had a good childhood. Pop put glow-in-the-dark stars on my ceiling. Nana made pancakes every Saturday morning. I had my own little room in their house in northern New York, and I was a happy kid. I did not spend my days wondering where my father was, because I did not feel like I was missing anything. I had people who loved me, people who showed up, people who made sure I was safe. Then Gavin showed up. I was 6 years old, sitting on the porch eating a popsicle, when some guy pulled into the driveway in a blue sedan. My mom saw him through the screen door, and her face went completely white. He had not come looking for me. Not really. He had heard through the grapevine that my mother had just gotten out of a relationship, and he figured he would take another shot at her. She shut him down at first, but he kept coming back. When that did not work, he changed tactics and started asking about me instead. He said he wanted to be a father. He said he had changed. He said he knew he had made mistakes, but he wanted a chance to make things right. My mother let him visit every other Saturday. I think part of her felt guilty, not because of anything she had done, but because of what she thought I did not have. She would see me watching other kids at the park with their dads, and she would read something into it, even when there was nothing there. She carried this weight around, raising me without a father. Like Gavin abandoning us was somehow her failure. So she let him in against her instincts, because she thought she was doing it for me. And honestly, those visits were great at first. When you are 6, a dad is just a guy who shows up with remote control cars and lets you eat pizza with no rules. My mother had bedtimes and vegetables and homework. Gavin had arcade tokens, soda, and zero boundaries. To a little kid, that looked like love. What I did not realize was that Gavin spent most of those visits mining me for information about my mother. He would slip the questions in between games, like they meant nothing. We would be racing remote control cars across the living room, and he would casually ask if mom had any friends who came over. We would be eating pizza, and he would ask if she ever talked about him. I was 6. I answered everything honestly, because why wouldn't I? He was not building a relationship with me. I was the back door into my mother's life. And the worst part is, he was good at it. He made me feel like I was his little buddy, like we had this special thing between us. That is what still bothers me when I think about it now. I did not even know I was being played. I was just happy. It took me years to figure that out. After months of wearing my mother down with those Saturday visits, Gavin went into full court press. Flowers, dinner for the 3 of us, helping around the house, playing the reformed man like he had rehearsed the role in a mirror. And my mother, after years of doing everything alone, let her guard down. I used to judge her for that. It took me a long time to stop. She was not stupid. She was not weak. She was a woman who had been carrying everything by herself since she was 20, and here was the man who had left her finally offering to share the weight. Gavin read her perfectly. He gave her just enough warmth and just enough help to make her believe he was different. So when he proposed after about a year, she said yes. The first year of their marriage was fine. Gavin was on his best behavior. Then the cracks started showing, and once they started, they never stopped. It began with a move. Gavin worked as a regional sales manager for an industrial supply company. He told my mother he had gotten a territory reassignment about 4 hours south, near Albany. Better territory. Bigger commissions. More opportunity. My mother pushed back hard. Her parents were close. Her job was there. My school was there. My friends were there. Our entire life was there. But Gavin did what Gavin always did. He made it sound like the only rational option. He had projected income numbers, cost of living comparisons, and tax benefits. He talked about uprooting our lives like he was presenting a quarterly strategy, not making a decision that would affect actual human beings. Eventually, my mother caved. She thought that was what marriage was supposed to be, compromise. Except Gavin had already found the house and put an offer on it before she even agreed to go. Her yes was a formality. She put $42,000 into the down payment. Every dollar she had saved for years went into that house. The house went into both of their names, but her money was what made the deal happen. Once we got to the new city, my mother applied to every vet clinic and animal hospital within 30 miles. Nothing worked out. Gavin kept suggesting she just stay home for a while. Take care of the house. Take care of me. He framed it like he was doing her a favor, like he was giving her a break. But with no support system nearby and a husband who kept pushing the stay-at-home angle, she eventually stopped applying. That was exactly where he wanted her. Dependent, isolated, 4 hours away from the people who would have helped her. Then came the financial control. Gavin tracked every dollar she spent. He expected receipts for groceries. If she bought anything beyond food or cleaning supplies, he would go cold and start questioning her judgment. One memory is burned into me permanently. My mother bought me a pair of sneakers for school. They were $38 from a clearance rack. My old ones had holes in them. Gavin saw the receipt and told her to return them. He said they were not a necessity. My mother cried in the car on the way back to the store. I was in the back seat. I was 10 years old. I still remember the exact price of those shoes because of what her face looked like that day. Another time, I needed supplies for a school science fair. It was maybe $25 total. Gavin found the receipt and spent an hour telling my mother she should have asked first. She returned half of the supplies. I stood next to a half-finished board at the fair, while every other kid had projects with lights and moving parts. The embarrassment was not about the grade. It was knowing we had the money. Gavin just did not think I was worth spending it on. The arguments at home were constant, but never loud. That was not Gavin's style. He did not yell. He twisted things around calmly until my mother started questioning whether she remembered things correctly. I would sit in my room with headphones on, pretending I could not hear her voice cracking through the walls. One night, when I was 12, I came downstairs to get water and walked straight into the middle of one of their arguments. Gavin was sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of receipts fanned out in front of him, going through them one by one, asking my mother to justify each purchase. She was standing at the counter with her arms crossed, trying not to cry. I stood in the doorway for maybe 10 seconds before I opened my mouth. Stop talking to her like that. Gavin looked at me with an expression I will never forget. He was not angry. He was amused. Like a 12-year-old, standing up to him was the funniest thing he had seen all week. He leaned back in his chair and said, "Go back to bed, buddy. This is grown-up stuff." My mother cut in before I could respond. "Go upstairs, baby." "I'm fine." But her voice was different. She was not backing him up. She was protecting me from getting on his radar. I went upstairs, but I did not sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to his voice drone on downstairs for another hour. That was the night I figured out something no kid should have to understand at 12. My mother was not staying with Gavin because she loved him. She was staying because he had made it so she could not leave. No job, no savings, no support within 4 hours. He had trapped her, and she did not even have anywhere to go. My mother was 34 when she found out she had ovarian cancer. Stage 3. I was 13, old enough to understand what that meant, and too young to handle it. She told me straight at the kitchen table. No sugarcoating. She said she was sick. She said she was going to fight. She said I was going to be okay. I believed her because I had to. You would think a cancer diagnosis would snap even the worst version of a husband into gear. You would think there would be one line even a man like Gavin would not cross. Instead, Gavin pulled out a notepad at the kitchen table and started listing costs. Treatment estimates, hospital stays, prescriptions, missed work, travel, everything came down to the same question for him. What does this cost me? He did not have a separate mode for his wife's cancer. He processed it the same way he would process going over budget at work. Then he put the notepad down, looked at my mother, and said, "Between the mortgage, the car, and monthly expenses, I don't see where this fits. There's no room in the budget." My mother stared at him. Then she asked, "Room in the budget? For what exactly?" "For all of this. The treatments. It's not realistic, Grace. Call your parents." I was standing in the hallway when I heard that. I did not say a word. I just stood there, 13 years old, and something changed in me for good. I stopped seeing Gavin as a bad dad. I started seeing him for exactly what he was, a man who only kept people around when they were useful. Within 2 weeks, Pop showed up with his truck after driving 4 hours. He walked through the front door, looked at my mother, and said, "You got bags packed?" She nodded. "Then let's go home." That was it. No lecture. No questions about why she had stayed so long. No anger aimed at her. Just a man who drove 4 hours to bring his daughter and grandson home. We loaded everything we could and left. Gavin stayed behind. He kept the house. He kept his job. He kept living like his wife and kid had not just walked out. For the first month, he called once a week, but only about logistics. When was the divorce happening? What about the house insurance situation? What about the mortgage? Never once did he ask how my mother was doing. Never once did he ask about me. By the time she started chemo, he had stopped calling entirely. Pop drove my mother to chemo 3 times a week, 40 minutes each way. He would sit in the waiting room for hours with a newspaper and a thermos of coffee just so she did not have to walk out alone. Nana kept the house running. She made sure I got to school. She picked up extra shifts at the fabric shop to cover whatever insurance would not. They were in their mid-60s. They did not hesitate. But I could see what it was doing to Pop, even though he would never say it. He got quieter. He started going out to the garage at night and sitting in his truck with the engine off, staring at nothing. One night, I found him out there and asked if he was okay. He said he should have fought harder to stop the marriage. He said he saw what Gavin was and did not push hard enough. I told him it was not his fault. He nodded, but I could tell he did not believe me. Pop carried that guilt the whole time. He never let it slow him down, but he carried it. I watched my mother lose her hair. I watched her lose weight. I watched her lose the ability to walk upstairs without stopping halfway. Some days, she could not get out of bed. I would bring her water and sit on the floor beside her, doing my homework so she would not be alone. Through all of it, Gavin never showed up. There was one day I will never shake. My mother had a bad reaction to 1 round of chemo. Pop rushed her to the emergency room at 2 in the morning. Nana stayed home with me, but neither of us slept. We sat at the kitchen table waiting for the phone to ring. When Pop called around 6 in the morning and said she was stable, Nana put her head down on the table and cried. It was the first and only time I ever heard her cry. That morning, I texted Gavin. I told him Mom was in the hospital. I told him it was bad. He read the message. I saw the read receipt. He did not respond for 11 hours. And when he finally did, he asked if the hospital visit would affect the insurance premiums. His ex-wife was in the emergency room. His son had been up all night terrified, and the man wanted to know about premiums. I deleted the conversation and did not text him again for 3 years. During her treatment, my mother did something I did not find out about until after she was gone. She met with an estate attorney and drew up a will. She left everything to me, her savings, her assets, and most importantly, her half of the house she had paid into with Gavin. She had it notarized. She filed everything properly. She designated my grandparents as my legal guardians. She did all of it quietly. Pop told me later that in her final weeks, she seemed calmer than she had in years, more like herself. And I think this was why. For the first time since marrying Gavin, she was doing something he could not undo. She was not asking for permission. She was not running it by anyone. She was just handling it. She knew exactly what Gavin would come for the second she was gone, and she made sure he could not get it. My mother passed away 11 months after the diagnosis. I was 14. I am not going to try to put that kind of loss into perfect words. If you have lost a parent, you already know what that is. If you have not, nothing I say will truly get you there. Gavin did not even wait a full month. 3 weeks after we buried my mother, he called and asked to speak to me. I got on the phone expecting, I do not even know, maybe some late apology. Maybe one human sentence. There was no, I'm sorry. No, how are you holding up? No, I know this is hard. He went straight to it. Listen, I've been looking into the situation with the house. Your mom's will is going to get contested. It should have transferred to me automatically as the surviving spouse. He paused like he was reading from a script. The simplest thing for everybody would be if you just signed your portion over. We can do it quick and clean. No lawyers, no headaches. I was 14 years old, 3 weeks out from watching my mother get put in the ground, and this man was running a sales pitch on me for her property. Pop took the phone before I could respond. I heard him from the next room, and it was the angriest I had ever heard him. After that call, Pop sat me down and explained everything. The will, the deed, my rights. My mother's attorney had made it airtight. Gavin's name was only on his half. My half was mine, that was it. But Gavin kept pushing. Every few weeks, there was a new angle. First came the guilt play. He said my mother would have wanted him to have the whole house. Then came the family play. He said we should handle it between us, as if we were still a family. Pop and Nana shut him down every time. They were the wall between me and Gavin. And at 14, 15, and 16, I needed that wall. I got through high school at my grandparents' house. I had decent grades. I played basketball, mostly to burn off the kind of angry energy that builds up when you are a teenager who lost his mother and got ditched by his father. Pop taught me cars on weekends. He was a retired mechanic, and he believed every man should be able to do his own oil change and brakes at minimum. Saturday mornings in that garage became one of the only places I could breathe. Hands black with grease, radio playing some classic rock station. Pop walking me through how to read a torque wrench. Those hours did more for me than Gavin managed in his entire run as my father. Pop did not lecture. He would hand me a tool and let me figure it out. If I messed up, he would show me once, then hand it back. One Saturday, I was trying to change a brake rotor, and I kept stripping the bolt. I was getting frustrated, slamming the wrench down, muttering under my breath. Pop watched me for about a minute, then walked over and said, "The bolt's not your enemy. You're fighting it instead of working with it. Apply steady pressure. Let the tool do the job." Then he walked back to his side of the garage. I cooled off, tried again, and the bolt came right out. He never said another word about it. But I have thought about that moment 100 times since. Steady pressure. Let the tool do the job. That is basically how I handled everything with Gavin later. No screaming, no emotional outbursts. Just steady, documented, legal pressure until the bolt came loose. Pop also taught me something else during those years, even though I did not fully appreciate it at the time. He showed me what it looks like when a man takes care of his family without keeping score. Not like Gavin, who made sure you knew exactly what he had done for you and exactly what you owed him for it. Pop just showed up, again and again, quietly, without asking for applause. I got into a state school upstate with a partial scholarship and covered the rest by working at an auto parts store near campus. I studied accounting, kept my head down, and built a life that had nothing to do with my father. During sophomore year, I ran into one of Gavin's old coworkers at a gas station near campus. The guy recognized my last name and asked how my dad was doing. I told him we did not really talk. He got uncomfortable, then mentioned that Gavin used to complain at work about being stuck with the house payments and having an ungrateful ex-wife. That was what he called my mother, ungrateful. The woman who put $42,000 into his house. The woman who got sick while he calculated whether her chemo was worth the expense. I thanked the guy, got in my car, and drove back to campus. During college, Gavin was basically a ghost. A text on my birthday sometimes. Maybe a holiday call that lasted less than 3 minutes. He was still living in the house I co-owned, paying his part of the mortgage, and pretending my half did not exist. I did not push the issue yet, but I started keeping a folder. Every text, every email, every voicemail. The accounting student in me understood one thing very clearly. Paper trails win cases. After graduation, I got a job at a small accounting firm about an hour from my grandparents. Entry level, but it was mine. I got my own apartment. I started stacking savings. Gavin was basically a stranger, and I was fine with that. If he had left it alone, none of what happened next would have happened. 3 months ago, I was scrolling through my phone on a Sunday night when a photo stopped me cold. Gavin in a suit. Some woman I had never seen before standing beside him in front of a courthouse. The caption said something about new beginnings. The man had gotten married. She was younger than him. Late 20s maybe. He was 46. She had dark hair, a big smile, and she was hanging onto his arm like he was the greatest thing that had ever happened to her. I showed Pop the photo over coffee the next morning. He looked at it for about 2 seconds, set my phone down, and went back to his mug. Then, without even looking up, he said, "Keep your guard up. He's going to want something." Pop saw through Gavin. Always had. Sure enough, a week later, Gavin called me for the first time in months. He told me he had gotten married like I had not already seen the post. I told him I knew. That threw him off for a second. Then he hit me with the bonus round. Jennifer, his new wife, was pregnant. That was why they had rushed the courthouse wedding. He dropped it like I was supposed to light up and throw confetti. I did not say much. I just let him talk. He was not calling to share good news with his son. He was warming me up. After 22 years of watching this man operate, I knew the pattern. Charm first, set up second, then the ask. He invited me to come by the house the following weekend. He said he and Jennifer wanted to discuss something important. He would not tell me what it was, only that it needed to happen in person. I said I would think about it. I called Pop that night. He went quiet for about 10 seconds, which for Pop is a 5-alarm fire. Then he told me to go, but to go ready. Listen to everything. Do not agree to anything. Do not sign anything. Call me the second you leave. I spent the rest of that week getting my things together. I pulled every document I had on the house. The original purchase agreement, my mother's will, the deed, property tax records going back years. I scanned everything into a secure folder. I bookmarked 3 real estate attorneys with strong reviews. I screenshotted the current estimated value of the house from 2 different sites. If Gavin was planning a move, I was walking in there with my homework done and my receipts in order. I drove the 4 hours that Saturday. I had not been to that house in years. Walking through the front door felt strange. The layout was the same, but nothing else was. New furniture, new paint. On the mantel, where there used to be a photo of my mother and me at a pumpkin patch, there was now a framed picture of Gavin and Jennifer at some beach resort, both of them grinning. My mother and I had been completely scrubbed from the place. Jennifer was in the kitchen when I came in, visibly pregnant. 6 or 7 months along. She seemed nice enough, nervous, and she shook my hand while saying it was great to finally meet me. That word told me everything. Finally. Gavin had not exactly been advertising my existence to her. She kept glancing at him before she spoke, like she needed clearance. I recognized that dynamic immediately. My mother used to do the same thing. Watching Jennifer do it made my stomach drop, because I was not just looking at Gavin's new wife. I was looking at the early stages of the same cycle. She was already checking his face before opening her mouth, already adjusting herself around his reaction. She had no idea what was coming. Or maybe she did, somewhere deep down, and she was already telling herself it was normal. We sat down in the living room. Gavin did not bother with much small talk. He leaned forward and said he and Jennifer had come to a decision about how things would work going forward. Not a conversation, a decision. Already made. He was just there to deliver it. Before he got into it, I asked to use the bathroom. Partly because I needed to, partly because I wanted to walk through the house one more time. I went down the hallway past the room that used to be mine. It was a nursery now. Soft yellow walls, a crib in the corner, a mobile hanging above it. My room? The room where I used to lie awake, listening to Gavin interrogate my mother over receipts. The room where I sat on the floor, doing homework next to my mother's bed when she was too weak to stand. They had turned it into a nursery and did not think twice. On the way back, I passed the hall closet and noticed a cardboard box shoved behind the vacuum. The flap was open. There were photo frames inside, face down. I could see the edge of one I recognized. A green border. The pumpkin patch photo. My mother and me. She was laughing in that picture. They had not just taken it off the mantel. They had boxed it up and buried it next to the cleaning supplies. I closed the closet door, went back to the living room, sat down, and looked at Gavin. After seeing that, I was done. Whatever he was about to ask for, the answer was already no. First, he told me they did not want me calling him dad anymore. He said, "Jennifer and I have talked about it, and we think it would be confusing for the baby to hear someone else using that word. Going forward, I'd prefer if you just called me Gavin, like we were acquaintances who happened to share a last name." I just nodded and let him keep going. Second, he said they did not want me having any contact with the baby. Not until the kid was old enough to understand what a half-sibling was. So basically, he wanted me to not exist until they decided it was convenient for me to exist again. Jennifer leaned forward and said, "We really hope you can respect this. It's not personal. We're just trying to protect our family. I hope there are no hard feelings." Then the real reason for the whole meeting came out. Gavin said he needed me to sign my share of the house over to him. He said he needed the property fully in his name so he could eventually pass it down to Jennifer and their baby. He said it casually, like he was asking me to forward an email. It's the right thing to do. This way, the house stays in the family and everyone is taken care of. It just makes sense. Then he slid a stack of papers across the coffee table, a pre-filled property transfer form. My name already printed in the blanks. A pen sitting on top pointed toward me. He had filled out the paperwork in advance and set a pen on top like I was going to sign my mother's legacy away without a single question. I looked at the pen. Then I looked at the form. Then I looked at him. And for about 2 seconds, some small trained part of me actually considered it. Not because it made sense. Not because he deserved it. But because somewhere inside me, there was still a 6-year-old kid who wanted this man to be proud of him. A kid who wanted to hand over the paper and finally have Gavin look at him like a son. Then I looked at Gavin's face, and I did not see a father asking his son for help. I saw a man running numbers. Something inside me went flat. Not angry, not sad, just done. This man was never going to change. I was a problem in his new life, and he wanted me to make myself disappear so he did not have to deal with it. I told him I was not signing anything. Then I told him that since he and his wife had decided I was not part of their family, I would be making that mutual in every legal sense of the word. He would be hearing from my attorney within the week. The calm act he had been doing the entire meeting dropped instantly. There's no reason to bring lawyers into this. This is a family matter. We can work this out between us. I looked at him and said, "We stopped being family about 10 minutes ago when you asked me to stop being your son." Jennifer jumped in, her voice shaking. "You're being completely unreasonable. All we're asking for is stability for our baby. Why are you making this so difficult?" I looked at her for a long second. Then I said, "I hope things work out for you, Jennifer. I really do. But you should pay very close attention to how he treats people when they stop being useful to him, because eventually, it's going to be your turn." She went quiet after that. I grabbed my jacket and walked out. Gavin followed me into the driveway, talking fast, telling me I would regret this. I got in my car and pulled out without looking back. I called Pop from the highway and told him everything. He listened. Then he said 4 words. "Now we go to work." Monday morning, I was sitting across from a real estate attorney named Phil Hartwick, late 50s. No nonsense. He had been handling property disputes in the county for over 20 years. I came in with everything. My mother's will, the purchase agreement, the deed, tax records, bank statements, showing my mother's $42,000 down payment. Phil went through all of it and told me my position was solid. He gave me 2 options. We could negotiate a buyout, where Gavin would pay me fair market value for my half, or we could file a partition action to force a sale of the entire property. I asked Phil which one he recommended. He leaned back and said, "If you want this done clean, and you don't want to spend the next year going back and forth with a guy who has never negotiated in good faith a day in his life, file the partition and let the court handle it." I did not even have to think about it. I told Phil to file the partition. I wanted the house sold. No negotiations. No back and forth. A clean cut. Phil sent Gavin a formal legal notice that same week. The day it arrived, Gavin called me 6 times. Every single call went to voicemail. From that point forward, all communication went through my attorney or email. Everything documented. No more phone calls he could twist later. Gavin's first real response was a long email. He called me ungrateful. He said he had kept a roof over my head for years. He said my mother would have been ashamed of me. I forwarded it to Phil without replying. Phil told me to keep saving everything. Build the file. So I did. Over the next 2 months, Gavin ran through every play he had, and watching it happen in real time was almost educational. First came guilt. He said he could not afford a buyout. He said Jennifer was stressed. He said I was putting her health at risk. When guilt did not work, he switched to victimhood. He sent a long message about wanting a normal father-son relationship. When that failed, he went to rage. A 3-minute voicemail calling me ungrateful. Then he circled all the way back to charm and asked if we could just talk like 2 adults. The father-son email was the one that got me the most. This man had told me to stop calling him dad. He had told me to vanish from his life. Then he played the wounded father card because I threatened his free housing. You almost had to respect the range. He called Pop directly and asked him to talk some sense into me. Pop told him all communication went through the attorney. Then Gavin tried Nana, thinking she would be softer. She told him the same thing, then added that he should be ashamed of himself for what he did to her daughter. That was the last time either of them spoke to him. One thing that gave Phil a serious edge was the paper trail I had been building since college. Every email, every text, every voicemail where Gavin had tried to guilt me, pressure me, or manipulate me about the house. Phil used all of it to show the judge exactly what kind of person we were dealing with. It did not directly decide the property ruling, but it painted a picture. The partition moved through court smoothly. Gavin hired his own attorney, who argued that because Gavin had been paying the mortgage for years, he deserved a larger share. They tried to argue for credits based on his mortgage payments and maintenance costs. Some of that got factored into the final numbers, but it did not erase ownership. My mother's contribution was documented. The will was valid. My 50% was not going anywhere. Gavin's lawyer also tried arguing that the will had been signed under duress because my mother was terminally ill. Phil had anticipated that. He brought documentation from the estate attorney and medical records, confirming that my mother was fully lucid when she signed. The judge did not even ask for a rebuttal. He looked at Gavin's lawyer, looked at the paperwork, and moved on. That was the moment I knew it was over. Not a dramatic courtroom speech, not some huge movie moment, just a judge flipping past Gavin's best argument like it was junk mail. The court ordered the house sold. Gavin fought it to the wire with delays and extension requests, but the judge set a hard deadline. The house went on the market and sold in 3 weeks. Final sale price, $310,000. The remaining mortgage balance was still around $112,000, plus closing costs and attorney fees on both sides. When the dust settled, my share came out to just over $89,000, a clean deposit into my account. While the property case was moving, I took care of the rest. I had my attorney draft a formal no-contact notice and send it to Gavin. I filed the paperwork to change my last name to my mother's maiden name. I updated my next of kin, medical proxy, emergency contacts, and everything else. I removed him from anything that legally tied us together. And I had Phil make it clear that if Gavin or Jennifer contacted me again after the notice, we would pursue a restraining order. When the last form was processed, I felt something I had not expected. It was not just relief. There was grief in there too. Not grief for Gavin. Grief for the version of him I had kept waiting for my whole life. The dad who would actually want to know me. The dad who would come to a game, or call to check in, or just be normal for once. That guy never existed, but part of me had never stopped hoping he would. Filing those papers was finally admitting he was not coming. Gavin's last move came through Jennifer. She called me about a week after the house closed, screaming before I even finished saying hello. "Are you happy now? We're living in my parents' basement with a newborn because of you. You took everything from us. Your father is broken over this." And here is the thing. I could hear in her voice that she believed every word. She was not performing. Gavin had told her his version, and she had swallowed it whole, the same way my mother had years earlier. I almost felt something for her. Almost. Then she said something that stopped me cold. "He told me you signed the house over years ago. He told me it was fully his." Gavin had been lying to her the entire time. She did not even know my name was still on the deed until the legal notice showed up. He had married this woman, moved her into a house he only half owned, and told her it was all his. That was who she was defending. A man who had been lying to her face since before their wedding day. I let her keep going. She called me selfish, greedy, heartless. She said everyone in their circle thought I was a terrible person. She went on for about 4 straight minutes. When she finally ran out of steam, I said, "Jennifer, he is not my father. He made sure of that himself. Lose my number." Then I hung up. She called back twice. I blocked her. I blocked Gavin. I set up email filters so anything from either of them routes to a folder my attorney can access. Clean. Documented. Done. Here is what I will leave you with. I do not feel guilty. Some people are going to say I should have been the bigger person, that I should have let him keep the house and walked away. And honestly, there were nights during the legal process when I lay awake running that exact argument through my head. I wondered if I was doing this for my mother or for myself. I wondered if part of me just wanted to hurt Gavin the way he had hurt us. But what I came back to every time was this. My mother worked herself to the bone saving that money. She put every dollar she had into that house, while Gavin treated her like she was disposable. She got sick, and he told her to call her parents. She died, and he came for her assets before her headstone was even set. Gavin already took everything he could from my mother. I was not going to let him do the same thing to me. I put the money into a high-yield savings account. I am working on a business plan for an auto repair shop, something I have been thinking about since those Saturday mornings in Pop's garage. I have already started looking at commercial spaces within driving distance of my grandparents. It feels right. Like I am taking what my mother left me and building something she would actually be proud of. Pop and Nana are doing well. Pop's knees are not great. Nana takes the stairs slower than she used to, but they are still sharp, still stubborn, and still the toughest people I know. We still do Sunday dinners every weekend. Football in the den, coffee at the kitchen table. They are my family. As for Gavin, I have not heard from him since Jennifer's call. I do not expect to. He spent my whole life treating me like a problem he wanted to go away. He got his wish. But it happened on my terms, and that makes all the difference.